Welcome, Travis Lawrence with Arrow ECS. Today's session is on VSAN clustering, specifically version 6.1 and the new clustering technologies within that. It's a good 10-minute overview for sales or technical audiences, so regardless of whether you are really in distribution, we really see a lot of questions, not only around VSAN and the sort of parts and pieces. So we've talked in the past in other videos around array controllers, SSDs, hard disks, what components we need to have on the HCL to make the solution work. And this is really in that vein, but providing more information on the clustering component. So again, helping your customers understand what are the use cases for this, when would they need to use this, and then around some other items, around requirements. What are fault domains? How does that really pertain to my business? Why do I care about that? We've also seen some confusion around the witness within vSAN, so when the witness can be a virtual machine within a nested ESXi environment, or just a general vSAN scenario where we have multiple 3 or more nodes, we can have that be on the actual host itself. So some great content. Kevin Grote, our technical partner manager, will go through all of that again within 10 minutes. So I think it's great to review. If you have calls with customers on vSAN, maybe review a video before each one of those sessions. As always, within Arrow, you feel free to contact me, tlawrence@arrow.com, or @tlawrence on Twitter. So with that, I will pass it on to Kevin.
Hello, welcome to today's session. As always, Kevin Grote, Technical Partner Manager here at VMware. Today we've got a really cool session. We're going to be talking about Virtual SAN 6.1 and specifically around stretched clustering. Hopefully this session gives you a quick overview into the concept of a stretched cluster inside of 6.1 and allows you to see sort of the evolution of Virtual SAN and how this was the next logical step, and maybe give you some really cool ideas about where the technology may be going. So what is a Virtual SAN stretched cluster? Well, if we think about it, what Virtual SAN has given us so far was the ability to grow and scale inside of the data center. And then in 6.0 we saw the addition of fault domains, being able to ensure that Virtual SAN was highly available, not just within itself, but across different clusters. So the next logical step was to extend the capability of those clusters so it wasn't just about a fault domain, but also about its production and about being able to stretch replication and activity across those different points. The stretched cluster is bringing that into reality, and also at the same time promising on all these cool ideas that came about inside of vSphere 6. Things like long distance vMotion, content catalogs, all of this starts to snap in and make sense as we're looking at the capabilities of the stretched cluster. So as I mentioned, the stretched cluster really is an evolutionary construct of the fault domain. So the functions are managed just like any other Virtual SAN cluster. There's going to be a witness appliance, and that witness is just an ESXi virtual appliance. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. But that virtual appliance is going to be responsible for quorum and voting in the event of a cluster-related failure. If you've ever done anything regarding stretch clusters or multi-data center deployments, you know that you have to have a witness involved to ensure that if there is a failure, it declares who the winner is, and it is the device that ensures that things aren't experiencing, let's say, a false negative. Or you don't just have a failure instantiated because of a momentary lapse in connectivity. So the witness is very important, and in this space it's being leveraged, as I said, for quorum and also as a voting mechanism to ensure that we're not experiencing any false negatives or false positives for that matter, and that everything stays up and running as it should. It's important to note down here at the bottom, the witness is only storing metadata. The witness does not store any components of the virtual machine. So everything is secured inside of Virtual SAN, inside of maybe your NSX or your own networking constructs, and you're not having to worry about the actual virtual machine files being transported anywhere, aside from just through the replication process. So let's look at the idea behind the stretch cluster. So as we can see here, the witness appliance can be deployed onto a third site, because you wouldn't want it on either one of the sites, because after all, if either site goes down, the witness appliance doesn't exist anymore and it can't provide a quorum or be used as a voting mechanism because it itself is gone. So you're either going to want to place your witness appliance inside of a third site, or you can deploy it on vCloud Air and host it there. This gives you the ability to, introduce a fault domain and also read locality. There's some fantastic papers, and I'll include a link down here inside of the comments section to a great paper that was written on read locality inside of Virtual SAN. And effectively what this means is that you don't necessarily want machines to have their CPU and memory in site A and have their files in site B. We want to make sure that all of this is acquiesced while still providing the ability for it to transport and move across data centers according to the design. So for more on read locality, check below. vSphere Enterprise features are also integrated and supported into this space, along with integrations for things like distributed resource scheduler and high availability, to ensure that workloads are highly available inside of the data center, that distributed resource scheduler is allowing for integration for things like read locality, and that everything's being respected without layering complication on top of these different functions. So now let's look at enhanced replication with vSphere Replication and Site Recovery Manager. So inside of this diagram, we see that we have our primary and our secondary site, and we've got our witness. But if we look closer, we'll see that we also have a tertiary site that's set up that has another vCenter, and we've got Virtual SAN living over inside of that space, and we're using site B to site X, or that tertiary site, with vSphere Replication. vSphere Replication has been enhanced to allow for RPOs as low as 5 minutes. Now this is exclusively available if you're talking about leveraging Virtual SAN 6.x. And this 5-minute recovery point objective allows us to create new and exciting new architectures that adhere to the ideas of disaster avoidance, not just disaster recovery. So we're able to stretch clusters and able to leverage lower recovery point objectives to meet higher SLAs inside of new and advancing workloads. But it's not just effective if you're talking about physical sites. You can also leverage this inherently when we're talking about vCloud Air. vCloud Air leverages vSphere Replication as its default engine for moving and replicating workloads inside of disaster recovery as a service. So by adopting vSAN and adopting and utilizing stretch clusters, all of these cool technologies, you're also integrating seamlessly with what you're probably already doing with disaster recovery as a service in leveraging vSphere Replication. So there's really no change to the architectural construct. All we're doing is making it more widely available across greater distances. So here's some great ways to get started with Virtual SAN. You can see the links here. Be sure to click on these links and take a look at the overview videos, customer references, hands-on labs, and learn how to get started with your own Virtual SAN assessment, and to see how Virtual SAN is performing inside of your infrastructure and what workloads might be best optimized and ready for utilization with Virtual SAN. Thanks again for taking time to join me today. I hope you found this information useful. Be sure to check out the other videos inside of this series, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.